I know it might sound like overkill to have a second tutorial, considering there's already a tutorial for doing the mortgage project online. However, I did change my template just a little bit, so it might help to see the whole project. The first thing you need to do is go shopping. Go online and find a house. So I went to find a house that looks or has the same price. We're going to come in here. It has the same price as the PDF. The first thing you'll want to do is make sure that you get your picture, your name, the description, the address, and the price. There we go, house description. We'll go back in, copy and paste. Here's the description of my house. Copy, paste it into here. That's a little big. Let's whittle it down just a little bit. There we go. Address, you'll go find it. I'm just going to put it on Happy Street to speed us up. And the price is going to match the PDF of 180,000. I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger. There we go. All right, those are 4 easy points, and I will come in here when I'm grading and put 4 points once you have all of that. You don't have to worry about looking at the rubric, but you can if you want to. You can play around with it yourself as well. Just don't change too much. It'll help kind of identify the different things that I'm looking for and will be grading. Now that I have my house and everything, whoops, and my name spelled wrong, we'll move on to the mortgage. Everything, I'm going to fill it out the same as your PDF. So the house price was 180,000. The down payment will be 5% as laid out in the part 1 of the real estate and APR research. We're going to do 0.05 times the house, making our down payment $9,000. And it also states in the PDF that the closing costs are a fixed value of $2,500. And our loan amount will be calculated. So I want to calculate it like a calculator. So put an equal sign. Here was the price of the house, but we paid $9,000, so we subtract that. And then we have to add in the closing costs because we have to pay those. And the loan amount is $73,500. The APR was given to us as 6%. Now remember, we're filling this out perfectly so that later you can go find your house and personalize this to whatever you find on the market. The years will be a 30-year loan, and the payment, we have 2 ways we can do this. We can use the payment formula found on page 249 in your text and calculate it out that way, and that would be equal the principal. So I'm going to put a parenthesis here, and that will be my loan amount times APR over N, APR, and this is monthly payments, divided by, open parenthesis, 1 minus, another parenthesis, 1 plus APR over N, or 12, and raise that small set of parentheses to the negative, oops, I need that inside parentheses, negative N times Y, and we're going to cell reference this one, and close parentheses. Enter. That's the long way of doing the payment, and it still works, and some of you might feel more comfortable using the formula, or we can use Microsoft Excel, which is PMT, and I'm going to do it off to the side just to show you that there's 2 ways. It's asking for the rate. Now what it doesn't state is that you still need to divide, just like we did in the annuity one, by N. And then N per will be, of course, N times years. And the present value is the loan amount And the future value, it's going to automatically assume is 0, and the type, again, that's at the beginning or the end of the month, it'll assume that it's 0. You don't have to type those in, but if you would like to, you could do comma 0, comma 0, or just press enter. And there we go. So we have these two ways of doing it. You'll notice, though, that Excel made this one negative. This is using the finance tools, and it's saying that this is for a debt. And it is a negative amount to us because we'll be paying it out. But for our calculations, we want it to be positive, so we'll put a little negative sign in front of the parentheses or in front of the payment so that it calculates that out as being positive. All right, total interest. The total interest is the money that you pay beyond the loan amount. The loan amount is $173,500, and we're making payments of $1,040 every month for 30 years, which is going to be more than the loan amount. So to find that total interest, we're going to use Excel like a calculator, press equals, and we're going to be making these payments 12 times a year, so times 12 for 30 years, times a cell reference of 30, and that was just a left click. Now I want to subtract what our loan was. We got our loan for $173,000. That should calculate how much money I paid throughout the 30 years, subtracting what I borrowed, which tells me how much interest I paid. Over 30 years, you more than pay for twice the house. So $200,000. Another way of doing that is a built-in Microsoft formula, just like we did previously. This one is CUMI PMT, CUMI payment. And it even tells you off to the side, this returns the cumulative interest paid between two periods. So I can use this one, and this one is asking for the rate. Again, not prompted. You need to know that you need to divide it by n, comma, n per number of periods. Well, it's 12 times a year for 30 years, comma. The present value here is the loan amount. The start period, well, we're going to start at the very first payment, and the end period will be at the very last payment, which is 12 times 30, or we can just type in 360, or we could do 12 times 30 like we did before. And in this one, notice how type is not inside the brackets, so we actually need to type it in, and we're going to assume again that it's at the beginning of the month or a 0. A 1 would say that it's at the end of the month. And there we go. So you have two ways of calculating those bottom two numbers. All right. For some reason, that was cell referencing something. You can go ahead and delete that, and don't let it throw you off. And we can fill out our amortization of the original scenario. So the first thing we want to do is find the balance. In this one, the balance is our loan amount. Everything else here, you can just blank it out. You can even put a little dash there if you want. We aren't doing anything in those. Oops. Now, down here in the interest, just like we did on the annuity, we want to equal the APR divided by 12. So I'm going to cell reference APR, divide by n, or 12, and times it by the loan amount, or the balance. In the annuity, we went ahead and referenced the loan amount up here in the box. But because I want to click and drag this all the way down to the very end of 30 years, I'm going to do here, and then I can just highlight my month 1 cell and go all the way down, and I don't have to do it 2 times like we did in the annuity. The principal will be whatever money you pay from your payment that isn't going towards the interest. Now, $867 is going towards the interest alone that first month. But I'm making a payment of $1,040. So if I subtract what amount is going to interest, I get what goes towards the principal. And so my balance only changes by $172. So I need this to calculate equals, left click on the balance and subtract what money is going towards the principal of the loan, and only a little bit. All right, now that I have this row filled in, some of you are going to come over here and you left click here, hold that click down and pull it over, highlighting those 4 cells, unclick, and then move your cursor over to the bottom right hand corner, and this will just show up all on its own. Once you're there, just click once and pull. Now you'll notice quickly that I didn't do something, and I wanted to do this for a reason, because some of you are going to do this all on your own and get a little confused. So I'm going to come up and check my cells again. Now notice this is referencing the APR and the balance, or the loan amount. So something here needs to stay the same. In our case, it's the APR. So I'm going to press F4. I can highlight it, or I can just put my cursor next to it and press F4. Now some of you might have to type in Shift 4 for the $sign. Some keyboards have also, I've noticed, have a function F4 to get it to turn on and off the functions, or to get it to do the F4. Just whatever is working with your own keyboard. If you need to though, and I'm going to assume that not everyone did the annuity tutorial, if you're finding that yours is not working with any of those tricks, you can go ahead and type in your $signs. Pressing Shift 4 will give me a $sign in front of the D, and that means that I am absolute cell referencing, or absolute row referencing, or column referencing column D, so that it won't move from this column. Now if I put a $sign in front of the 8, that means that I'm now absolute referencing row 8. So making it an absolute reference to column D and an absolute reference to column or row 8 makes this an absolute cell reference to always be D8. So you have those 2 different or 3 different options. Those of you who have the function F4 or the Shift 4, putting in your $signs, or those of you who just have F4 working, just put your cursor there, press F4, or you can highlight it and press F4. Now over here with the principal, again we have the same problem. I need D10 right here. The payment is always going to be $1,040. So I want that always to be $1,040. Now I didn't absolute cell reference the balance, which is good. I need it to change. I want it to go down every single time as I'm subtracting the principal. So don't absolute cell reference your balance. And over here, I also want this to change because I'm going to be paying less towards interest and more towards the principal. So don't absolute cell reference that one because I want it to come down each month with me. This one, I don't need to absolute cell reference either of those because I want those to change, because I will be changing the balance every month, and this I'll be adding more principal every month, so that one's good. Now those 4 cells are good. So you left click, hold down your click and move over 4 cells. Move your cursor over into the bottom right hand corner, and I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom. There we go. It looks like everything's working, and for some reason that's not, so I'm going to just throw that the borders all the way around. Now that everything's working, we can go ahead and go all the way to the end of 360 payments. I went too far. Getting closer. There we go. 360, because 12 times 30 years is 360 payments. There we go, and it's a long ways down. It's all 30 years every month. There we go. So now we have each month filled out for the original scenario. Next, we move to the extra payment scenario. This one was given to us in the PDF of $87, and then we need to change the months that we're going to pay, because if I'm paying $87 more, it changes that. Now I could do it the long way, but I'm going to go ahead and use the built-in functions in Excel. Again, press equals because we want it to calculate, and I'm going to type in N per. Now the number of periods for this one is going to change just a little bit. Again, we're going to cell reference the 6 over here, and I don't need to absolute cell reference because I'm not going to drag this. I just want to fill in my cell here for the months to pay. And it doesn't prompt you. You need to know that you're going to divide it by n, comma. This is the tricky part. The payment changes now. I need my payment here, but this one also, I need it to be a negative payment because the n per needs to calculate down from the present value. So I'm going to put negative and reference my payment, but I'm also paying this extra $87. So again, I'm going to subtract $87 and press comma, move to the next one. PV is present value. That's the loan amount, comma, and I could put in future value and type, but I don't need to. There we go. Now I'm only paying for 294 months versus we went all the way to 360 over here on the original scenario, which means the months saved, I want this to calculate. I have 12 months in a year times 30, or I could have just typed in 360 because you know that, and subtract the months that I have to pay instead. And there we go. You save 66 months by paying only $87 every single month. So how many years does that save you? So I'm going to take equals to calculate it, the months that I save, and divide it by 12 to give me years. It'll save you 5.5 years paying $87 extra. Now I have a new interest. So I want this to calculate, and the new interest is going to be how much I'm paying for the entire amount and then subtract what I borrowed. So I could do my QME payment, or I can do this by just cell referencing different things, which I'm going to on this one. Some of you might want to do the QME payment, and that is up to you. So my new interest, I'm going to be paying $1,040. Actually, I'm going to get that inside parentheses. Reason being because I'm going to take this and add my extra principal and close the parentheses. That's my new payment. I'm making this payment. Now, normally on the other one, we did times 12 times 30 years. But in this case, I saved some years. So the number of periods that I'm paying on this one is the months to pay. So I'm going to reference this cell and subtract what we borrowed from the very beginning, and I will say, now I'm only paying $158,000 versus the $200,000 from the original scenario. And the next one actually says, what's the difference between those? So we're going to take the equal sign to make it calculate the total interest and subtract my new interest, and it saves us $42,000 by just paying a little extra $87 every month. Now, why is it making such a big difference? Remember over here when we calculated how much money was going towards interest, and then very little of it at the beginning is going towards the principal. But if we pay extra money, like this $87, that goes directly to subtracting out money from the balance. So let's see what it looks like over here. So I need to cell reference my loan. There we go. And here my interest is calculated the exact same way. So I want it to calculate, press equals, and we have 6% And before we move on, some of you are automatically thinking, I don't want it to happen like on the last one, so we're going to press F4 because that's always going to be the APR. And divide it by n, or 12, and times it by the balance. And I want to reference the balance over here, not up here. The reason being is when I click and drag, my new balance will be in the next slot, and so forth. There we go. And you'll notice these are the exact same. That first month, nothing changes because that interest was calculated with the exact same balance. Now let's find the principal. Just like before, we're going to reference my payment. And again, that payment will always be the $1,040. So I'm going to press F4, or if you need to, press pause on your video right now and put in your Shift 4 to get the dollar sign in front of the column and the row. And now that's how much I'm paying, but this much is going towards the interest, which means we have the $172 going towards the principal. But we get this extra principal, which is $87. There's two different ways I can do this. I can absolute cell reference the $87, or something that's kind of fun, probably not in this example, but in other ones, if you instead do a second row and reference this one above, then later when I get down further, I could change this to $50, and if things change again in your finances, maybe you can do 200 and it'll change things according to what you've done. But in our case, go ahead and just do the absolute cell reference. If you're working on a project of your own or looking at your own house and you'd like to do something like that, then go for it. I thought it was just a nice little trick. So we're just going to do the absolute cell reference for our project of being $87. Now the new balance changes more than the original balance over here because I get to take off this full $87, which is pretty significant considering that in the first payment only $172 comes off of the balance or the principal. So we're again going to calculate, and so I want to put an equal sign, reference your balance, and subtract the principal, and subtract the extra principal. And now it looks a little different than the original scenario because more came off. I'm going to just double check here really quickly and make sure that this, I can go ahead and click and drag the whole thing down. All right, I absolute cell referenced the APR. I did not absolute cell reference the balance, which is good. I want my balance to go down every month, so that cell's good. The principal, I absolute cell referenced my payment. I don't want to absolute cell reference the interest because I need that to drag down with me because it's going to change every single month. Hopefully less and less will be going towards interest because more and more will be going to the principal. And the extra principal, I did an absolute cell reference, which is good. So this should be good to go, but I'm not going to go all the way to the end yet. I'm just going to go down a couple, make sure it's working. It looks great. If you want to double check in your book or in your PDF, you can go to month 6 and it says $860.94. Good, that matches. Principal was $179.28. That's great. And that's still $87. And this in your PDF is $171.922. Good. So everything looks great so far. I can pick up again and drag this down until I get to, I think it was 294 months. So we'll just keep going. Not quite there. Oh, it's telling me over here 296, 95, 94. And it doesn't quite cancel all the way out, so I need to go one more month. But you'll notice I go in the negative. That means I paid more than I needed to. So here I don't need to make my extra $87 payment. And here I don't need to make the full $1,040 payment either. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to just equal the rest of the principal. There we go. So the very last month I pay $1.77 on interest, $300 towards the principal, and it is all gone. So that's how you get that to balance out to zero, because you won't have to pay the full payment at the very end. There we go. It saved us. Look at those 5 years it saved. Kind of nice with only $87. Now, when you go do your shopping, you're going to change the house price to whatever you found, and the down payment will calculate for you. Don't need to change that. The closing costs, we're using a fixed closing cost, so you don't need to change that. The APR, however, you do need to change the APR to something that you find. Go do some research and see if you can find something really nice, maybe a 3.5. Keep your number of years at 30 for a 30-year loan so that we can do an original scenario, compare it against the extra payment scenario. The payment should be calculated for you, and the total interest again calculated for you. So you really only need to change the house price and the APR. Then over here you need to change your extra principal. So those 3 cells I'm going to be looking for, making sure that you change them to personalize it to you. If you leave this $87, I'm going to take off points. So change it to something, let's say $95, or things are a little tight, let's only put 50. It's up to you, but those 3 things need to change. Now, you'll notice over here, this is my grading rubric. If you want to look over it and make sure that you have done all of these to get your points, make sure that your original payment is correctly filled in over here, and the original scenario, the house price was changed to reflect your personal project along with the APR. The next is the iteration method filled in correctly for, this was the original payment. Everything is filled in correctly here. The iteration method are all of these cells filled in correctly. And the extra payment, are these cells filled in correctly? And did you also change it to reflect your personal project, which is the extra payment? Then again, the iteration or the amortization down here, is it filled in correctly? And it'll be 2 points for these. Then next is the ponder proof questions down here. Don't forget these. So many students forget that, and I'm worried that you might kind of lump it together with the grading rubric. It's not, and I will be doing a separate tutorial on how to find these 5 answers. But I did give you a teeny hint that you can go ahead and use the toolboxes down here, the 4th tab over, to remind you about all of the different finances or financial calculators built into Microsoft Excel, and that'll help you with some of these. Or you can use it on homework supplements or in your homework or quizzes. However, you cannot use this document for tests. You can use these formulas for tests. You'll just have to pull up Excel and make it work like a calculator all on your own. Now the last tab that you need to actually fill in is the ponder proof. I'm looking for a paragraph. 1 line will not cut it. And then I will make comments along the way about what you did and what you may not have done. Then I'll copy and paste this into your feedback portion of the assignment. I believe we've gone through everything so that you're good to go on the first part, and it actually isn't too bad, I think, once you get going. I'll see you for the tutorial number 2 on filling out the ponder proof questions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 so that you don't get too overwhelmed on one tutorial with so many things. All right, I'll see you in tutorial number 2.